But can settling be a good thing? I think I want to take back the word settle. Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. So a few months ago, my life completely upended when the house we were renting flooded. I had to get out of the house within 48 hours and ended up staying with friends for about a month while we looked for a new house. It was a lot. I'm the kind of person who thrives on structure and planning out my days, and this threw everything out the window. I was forgetting things, I was missing work deadlines, my anxiety was off the rails. Eventually, my partner and I did find a new house to move into, but then came the moving. And I felt this strong desire to get back to my routine, but how could I when we didn't even have a couch? You know what I mean? Like, there's just always seems to be a next step and something else that needs to get done as soon as possible. So once we felt all moved in, I wanted to do nothing. I didn't want my beloved routine. I didn't want to jump back into my projects. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with myself, honestly. But the word that kept popping up into my mind was settling. I wanted to settle. And I was talking with a friend about making that my quarterly goal, and we ended up laughing and discussing how that word has such a negative connotation. Like, what do you think of when you hear the word settle? It's stuff like, oh, they're settling, and you don't want to settle. But can settling be a good thing? I think I want to take back the word settle. Of course, I don't mean settling for less than you deserve. That won't fly. You deserve the world, so don't settle for less. But I guess my question is, well, what happens when you finally get the world? When we moved into this house, I quickly made it feel like home, but I also felt so much pressure to get back into my routine and back to all this work I had to do, and I just kind of wanted to settle into it. I was half joking when I told my friend that I wanted my quarterly goal to be settling, but then when I really thought about it, I realized that I actually do want my goal to be settling. I wanted to settle into this house. I wanted to settle into this new self that I was becoming here. I had a lot of free time when we first moved in and wasn't quite sure how to spend it. I felt like I wasn't really sure who I was anymore after things really hit the fan and I went into crisis mode. I just wanted to settle into this new place that I was in. I'm a really visual person, so the image I've kind of had in my head of settling was less like that lame boyfriend that you know your friend can do better than, but a tree whose roots are settling into the ground. And as the tree is growing, the roots are expanding and expanding and growing and growing. But eventually, when the tree feels safe where it is, the roots just kind of calm and sink into the ground where it's landed. And it probably won't be there forever. The tree will continue to grow, adjusting its root system to the changes brought to it and change with the seasons as they come. But in this one moment, the roots feel comfortable enough to rest. The tree can settle into the ground, a much-deserved break from growing and finding safe footing and testing its limits. And I think that's really beautiful. If things are or were crazy for you, don't be afraid to settle into the spot where you are right now. Nothing is permanent. Just because you settle in here doesn't mean you'll stay here. But sometimes it is nice to just breathe into where you are now and give yourself permission to rest and give yourself that permission to settle down. I actually went on a deep dive about the definition of settling and found that in physics, there are two terms for the ways that particles settle. One is free settling, where the individual particles fall freely without being touched or hindered by other particles. And then there's hindered settling, where the particle is moving slower due to interactions with neighboring particles. And I feel like that's pretty spot on. If you feel safe where you are right now, if you feel like you aren't really being bogged down by anything, then give yourself permission to free settle. Maybe you aren't sure what you'll do next, but for the first time in a while, what you'll do next is entirely your decision. And that is such a great feeling. So don't feel pressured to get into the next thing or figure out your next big life project. Let yourself just enjoy this moment. However, if you're constantly being brought down by what other people are saying you should be doing, or a relationship that feels like it's holding you back and not fostering your growth, or even if you're struggling with your own limiting belief system, that's not a place you want to settle into. Like the particle, you're probably feeling heavy, like emotionally heavy. You know that changes need to be made, but you don't even know how to take that first step. And you feel pulled back into the same habits and people. And maybe that's just because that's what's available to you right now, but you know it isn't 100% the right fit. You know that this place that you're in isn't where your roots want to settle. And that's when you need to take some action. And that's when you want to look at your life and ask yourself a couple questions. Like, what would I need in my life to feel safe enough to settle in? And this could be home security or relationship security or mental security, a hobby you want to dedicate your time to. I want you to think about what your ideal day would be like, and then write down what's missing in your current life from that ideal day. Next, you want to ask yourself, what can I do to make these things happen? How can I get these things that are missing from my life? And I know this is a really hard question, and sometimes it feels like there's not much you can do. If your job isn't bringing you joy, it's really hard to just quit out of the blue with no backup plan. But there's usually always something that you can do. And maybe that's just mapping out a timeline for when you can leave your job. You can work on your resume, spend afternoons applying to jobs. You can take an online course for a few months and grow and learn for your next job. And I know I'm listing all of this out as if it's really easy to do, but I know that's not the case. Everyone's circumstances and bandwidth is different, and where you are in life really affects that. If you aren't happy with your job but come home to kids that need you to take care of them, maybe an online course would be too much for you right now. But that's why I want you to really sit in this question and think about one or two things that you can do. Not huge changes. Not huge changes. We are not going for metaphorical bangs here. This is a slow burn. Just little changes that'll bring you closer to your goal gradually and in a way that doesn't burn you out. I am so grateful that I got to a place where I felt safe enough to settle. It's been a really hard couple years leading up to this moment. I was dealing with a lot of anxiety, a lot of pressure that I put on myself, a lot of tension in relationships in my life. I didn't feel like I was doing anything right. My job was taxing, everything I was trying seemed to fail. It's been a really hard couple years, and I know I'm not the only one who's felt that way. So if you're still in that space, I know it's hard. I know there's a lot that feels out of your control, but look towards the future. Keep that vision of how and when and where you would be comfortable settling in. And then don't be afraid to do that. We don't settle for things, but we settle into the right thing. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take time for yourself, and I'll see you next time. Like and subscribe if this video resonated with you. Drop a comment in the chat if it was helpful. I'd love to read those. And if you have any ideas for other topics you'd like me to cover or any questions you might have, feel free to drop those into the chat too. Thanks, everyone.